Russians already have complete control of northern part of Vovchansk. Here I draw a blue line. The Vovchansk River is 20 to 40 meters long, flowing from east to west. Now we will see where the Russians will go across the river. Today's report covers information from May the 18th to May the 20th. More Ukrainian reinforcement has arrived. The 82nd Air Assault Brigade. This brigade was formed in 2023 and was engaged in the summer offensive. The Forbes described them as ridiculously powerful, but unfortunately, they suffered heavy casualties in the summer offensive. They used to defend Robotyne in the southern front, but now the village has fallen. From the Russian side, we can confirm that 25th Motorized Brigade has arrived. They are part of the 6th Combined Army. The 25th Brigade and 138th Brigade both belongs to the 6th Combined Army. So it's very likely this whole army has arrived in North Kharkiv. In Lipsy direction, fighting continues in the east of Lipsy. Russians continue their offensive. But after the reinforcement arrived, Ukrainians start counter-offensive. For the past 3 days, there is no change in the contact line. Along the Severodonetsk River, Russians are clearing the forest and the villages, and we didn't see any cross-river actions yet. In Vovchansk, the fighting continues in north of Vovchansk. On May the 19th, Russians already captured the hospitals and these blocks. Some Russian recon team went across the river to attack this fire station and then returned. And on May the 20th, all Ukrainian troops retreat to the southern part of Vovchansk. In the east side, around May the 18th, Russian captured this village, Zebinin. This is a very important village. We can see the Vovchansk River had a U-turn here. There is a road from west to east. It crossed the river here, go across Zebinin village, and go across the river again. After Russians captured Zebinin, they can attack to the west, attack along this road, and flank Vovchansk from the east. Or, the Russians can be more aggressive. They can go east to attack Heoriivka. There's a road from this village going south and connect to the T2104 road, which is the main supply line for Vovchansk. If the Russians are very aggressive, they can go this direction to threaten the supply line of Ukrainians. In the coming days, we will see where the Russians will go across the river. If the Russians cross the river in the city, they will need to face the shooting from the buildings. But Zebinin is a much better place to cross the river. We will see what happens in the coming days. On Bakhmut front, Russians continue to attack, but with limited progress. On May the 19th, Russians attacked Kalinina and successfully captured some houses here. Now they are fighting in the village. If the Russians captured Kalinina, they will be able to go into the forest and attack this micro-district from the forest. Or they can go across the canal and attack Chasiv Yar main district. Actually, 2 months ago I used to say the Russians may need to consider flank the city from the north or from the south. Don't just attack in the front. Chasiv Yar is the most fortified fortress in Donbass now, and there are lots of Ukrainian troops here. If you just attack in the front, it will be difficult. For the past 3 days, the Russians continue to bomb the city. On around May the 18th, there are information saying the Russians already go into the main district from the forest here. And I checked the information from the Ukrainian side. It actually didn't happen. The fighting are still in the micro-district. The Russians need to figure out a new way to go into the city. In the south, Russians attack Klishivka. On May the 20th, Russians captured more than 60% of Klishivka. Once they capture this village, then the Ukrainians will have no village east of the canal, and the Russians may cross the canal and threaten Chasiv Yar from the south. Actually, in 2023, the Wagner PMC fighters used to be here. Now the Russians have to go through this way again. On the Donetsk front, Russians continue the offensive. On May the 19th, Russians attacked through the H20 road and improved their tactical position. From the map we can see that Ukrainians have no villages west of the H20 road. They retreat to this Alexandropil. After this village, there is a big town, New York. If the Russians continue to push north, they can attack this line of the villages. Or, if they want to be more aggressive, they can attack Kalinovi and then flank from the east. We can see it in New York and Toretsk. There are lots of fortifications. This is the defense line Ukrainians built since 2014. Actually, for the past weeks, Russians bombed New York every week. I think the Ukrainians may need to change the name of this town. Russians bombed New York. Russians flanked New York. Russians captured New York. It doesn't sound very good for the Americans. On the west side, Russians continue offensive. They attack Novo-Alexandrivka, but with little progress. On this whole front, Russians are in rotation. Actually, Russians have little progress since May. We can see the most important village here. We can see there are 3 villages, Novokalinovi, Keramik, and this town. After the Russians capture these 3 towns, they have enough buffer zone in the north, so even the Ukrainians counterattacked, the Russians will be able to defend. Now most of the Russian soldiers are in rotation, especially their main force, 90th Tank Brigade. I think most likely they will not be in battlefield until June. They are preparing for the summer offensive. Kharkiv offensive is still not the main offensive yet. I think the Russians are preparing for a bigger one. In Krasnohorivka, Russians attacked from the east. On May 18th, Russians captured this part. There's a little forest here and the road here north of the town. They will be able to attack the town from the north. And in the town center, Russians continue to attack north and capture some of the blocks. Now we can see that the Ukrainians have only less than 1 kilometer long. Here the Russians' 110th Brigade are in action. In the southern part is the 5th Brigade. Both of them are former DPR forces. I still use their own logo. It's easier to recognize. And the Ukrainians here, there are 1st Presidential Brigade and 31st Mechanized Brigades. How long have the Russians been fighting here? The first time the Russians attacked into the town is on April the 17th. In around 30 days, Russians are able to capture half of this town. This is much more efficient than the Battle of Marinka and Avdiivka, which shows that Ukrainians' defense capabilities are going down. Now the Russians capture most of the tall buildings here, and the Ukrainians only have the residential areas to defend. The Russians can attack from the east and attack from the southwest. If the Ukrainians are not able to counterattack, then this fortress may fall in 2 or 3 weeks. And west of Marinka, on May the 17th, they captured Heoriivka, which is a big success. Now in the southeast direction, Ukrainians' most important logistic hub is Krasnohorivka. This town used to be the most important logistic hub, but now the Ukrainians lost Marinka and they captured Heoriivka. So the Russians are only 7 kilometers away from Krasnohorivka, and Russians' artillery are able to threaten Krasnohorivka. This one can also be a target for Russia's summer offensive. So to conclude, for the past 3 days, Russians captured northern part of Vovchansk and also made progress in Marinka direction. In the coming week, we will see how Russians go across the Vovcha River, and maybe we will see the fall of Krasnohorivka. This is Jason Jiang from Shenzhen, China. Thank you for watching and see you next time.